So this is a letter that was sent, and it said that BDO didn't do the tax returns. This is a copy of a trust document. This is a tax return with a fictitious EIN number and fictitious assets that were listed on that EIN number. It's kind of amazing that BDO submitted the tax returns to the Dorothy Grega, and the EIN number listed on the tax returns was fictitious. It did not go to the Grega Charitable Trust. It was not a part of Dorothy Grega's EIN numbers. Now this is also that tax return that lists other assets, other stocks that are not legitimate real stocks. And so it's really curious to see that the pro forma copy, or the copy that was given to Dorothy Grega by BDO, is not a legitimate tax return. And this is a bank account at Bank of America using that same fictitious EIN number that isn't a real EIN number. Now this right here shows charitable stocks and other stocks that are not legitimate stocks. So it's just curious that this is a tax fraud issue. The IRS could have gone back 3 years. This is fictitious EIN numbers that were submitted. And it's just curious to me that nobody cared about this. I mean, this right here is John Selby, and he moved to Vegas. This right here was a letter that was written to the Bar Association to investigate that. This is Dorothy and Stephen Grega's Unitrust 91639. That's a real charitable trust. And this is Jennifer Baharski, who signed this Attorney General of Washington document. You know, it's just curious to me that the Attorney General of Washington was the trustee, was the administrator, or was the beneficiary of a charitable trust when there was no charity designated on the charitable trust, and the EIN number that was used on that charitable trust wasn't a legitimate company. You know, it's just kind of curious to me that this right here, this document right here for a bank account and for a tax return, it's just kind of curious to me that that tax return was not a legitimate tax return. There's her signature, and she thought in 2004 she was doing a legitimate tax return and signing it for a charitable trust that BDO created, or BDO did the tax returns on. And it turns out that none of the information that BDO supplied on this tax return, 916393818, none of the information is legitimate. It's a fictitious EIN number. It's probably a fictitious tax return, and it has all these dividends and all these different things on it that aren't real. You know, here she is, the poor woman, and she thought it was legitimate because BDO handed it to her. And the 1996 tax for Grega Charitable Trust, nobody, no attorney, Lane Palmas and Miller, none of these attorneys ever set up a legitimate tax return for that. So the Stephen and Dorothy Grega Charitable Trust, that is not a 1996 EIN number for that entity. And that entity had $100,000 in the bank in 2012, and they removed it from Bank of America, and they never filed tax returns on any of the property, the office building, the parking lots, the houses. You know, there is no EIN number for that charitable trust. So thanks for listening. I would like somebody to investigate the fact that there was never any tax return that was legitimate for the Dorothy and Steve Agreva Charitable Trust. That just never existed.